Hi, Oscar.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday. Happy birthday from Moosey. What do you say, Moosey? Happy birthday to dear Oscar. Give him a kiss then. And lots of kisses from
Lots of
Chrissy and Grandpa.
kisses from us.
Moosey asked if we could sing to you Happy Birthday. Is that right, Moosey? Yeah, it was. So we're going to sing you Happy Birthday. So come on, Granny.
Happy birthday. Right, go.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Oscar. Happy birthday to you.
Whoa, what do you think of that, Moosey? Pretty good? Yeah, not bad, I think Moosey thinks. Anyway, Granny's going to pop on, and I'm going to read you a little bit more from Zoe's Rescue Zoo as a special treat for your birthday, so I hope that'll be good. Okay.
I'll see you a bit later, Oscar, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Granny. Granny, okay? I just swing the camera around a little bit. And what were we reading about last time? Well, we were reading about the puzzled penguin. Do you remember? We just started reading about the puzzled penguin. And Mr. Pinch had a project for Zoe and Meep. And Zoe and Meep looked at each other and frowned. What was Mr. Pinch up to? They both stayed very still, trying to hear what he said. Meep's ears quivered curiously. Lucy glanced at the wooden hut. Remember, they're outside the wooden hut, and there's Mr. Pinch. A project? That sounds like fun. Zoe's been so looking forward to spending more time in the zoo now that school's finished. It will definitely keep Zoe and her friend entertained, Mr. Pinch agreed with a smirk. I thought she could start tomorrow. Whoa, look, all the penguins there, look. Whoa. I wonder what's coming next. So, Mr. Pinch thinks Zoe can start tomorrow. Zoe's heart sank. Whatever Mr. Pinch was planning, she knew it wasn't going to be fun. He didn't like Zoe and Meep being allowed to wander around the zoo like all the grown-up staff did, and he'd do anything to ruin her holiday. Say no, Mum, she pleaded silently. Lucy hesitated. Well, I'm sure Zoe will want to help out in any way she can. Excellent, Mr. Pinch interrupted. Tell her to be here at 9 o'clock sharp. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mrs. Parker, I must get on. Lots to do. Mr. Pinch smiled and waved as Lucy walked off down the path, then turned back to the sign he was painting, muttering to himself. Ha! Fun! This job will keep that pesky girl and her fluff ball, oh, that's not a way to call Meep, is it? Her fluff ball out of mischief all summer long. Now that is fun. Mr. Pinch whistled cheerfully to himself as Zoe and Meep looked at each other in dismay. Ooh, they're really worried, aren't they? Chapter 3, The Tricky Tickets. And that looks like Great Uncle Horace's macaws, doesn't it? Whoa, so what's the tricky tickets going to be? The next morning, as the zoo gates were opening, Zoe and Meep made their way back to the little wooden hut. When Zoe's mum had told her that Mr. Pinch wanted them to help with a special summer project, Zoe had just nodded sadly. As they walked along the red brick path through the zoo, a pair of colourful plum-headed parakeets, ooh, that's what they were, plum-headed parakeets, flew in circles above their heads. Zoe could tell it was going to be a beautiful hot day. From the enclosures around her, different animals squawked, roared and squeaked in greeting, happy to see her and Meep. Zoe desperately wanted to stop and talk to them all, but she knew she couldn't be late for Mr. Pinch. It was even harder to carry on when Oscar, the African elephant, saw her and trumpeted in excitement. Wow, Oscar, you've got an elephant named after you. That's fantastic, isn't it? Look at that. Anyway, whoa, Oscar the elephant. I'm sorry, Oscar, Zoe said miserably, reaching through the fence to stroke his long, wrinkled trunk. I can't give you your breakfast today. I promise I'll try to visit later on. Oscar blinked his dark eyes sadly, and then nodded his enormous head to show Zoe he understood. Look, There's Oscar and Zoe. That's fantastic, especially on your birthday, Oscar. As they arrived at the hut, Mr. Pinch was already waiting for them. He was holding a small cardboard box under one arm. "Hello, Mr. Pinch," Zoe said in the most polite voice she could muster. "What would you like us to do?" Mr. Pinch pointed to the hut. Pictures of penguins had been carefully pasted on the sides, and Mr. Pinch's sign had been finished. Zoe read it out loud. "Penguin feeding show. Every day at 3 o'clock. That was the sign on the hut. Mr. Pinch nodded importantly. "This summer there will be a new attraction at the Rescue Zoo. A daily penguin feeding show." He pulled a face. Can you pull a face? Anyway, he pulled a face. "If you ask me," said Mr. Pinch, "it will be a horrible, messy business. But it was Will the penguin keeper's idea. Anyway, it occurred to me that you two would be the perfect pair to sell the tickets." He smiled smugly at them. "After all, I am far too busy to do it myself. I have the entire zoo to run." Mr. Pinch handed Zoe the cardboard box he was carrying. Zoe lifted the lid warily. The box was packed full of small yellow tickets. Stamped neatly on each one were the words "Penguin Feeding Show. Admission 1. "Do we have to sell all of these?" Zoe gasped. "There are hundreds." 150 for each show, to be precise," Mr. Pinch smirked. "There's a chair in the hut so you can sit down, and a tin to collect the money every time you sell a ticket. You'll be far too busy to go around the zoo poking your nose into things that don't concern you." "Ooh, that's not very nice, is it, Oscar?" Whistling happily, Mr. Pinch strolled off down the path. Meep leapt onto the roof of the little wooden hut and blew a very rude raspberry at the grumpy zookeeper. Can you blow a raspberry, Oscar? I think that's how you do it. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, not bad. "Horrid Mr. Pinch," he chirped crossly. And there's Meep blowing a raspberry at Mr. Pinch. Zoe pushed open the door of the hut and went inside, with Meep scampering after her. As she sat down behind the little hatch, with the box of tickets on her lap, she had a sudden horrible thought. "Meep, Mr. Pinch said the show was daily all through the summer, didn't he? I think he's going to make us sell tickets every single day until I go back to school." The lemur squeaked in alarm, his big eyes wide. Zoe took a deep, shaky breath. She felt so disappointed. It was as though Mr. Pinch had just snatched all her plans and idea for the summer holidays out of her hands, and there was nothing she could do about it. Just then a couple walked down the path with a little girl. Zoe sat straight up and smiled bravely. "Come on, Meep," she whispered. "The sooner we sell the tickets, the sooner we can be back out in the sunshine having fun." The little girl spotted the hut first and read the sign out carefully. "Ooh, penguin," she said, tugging at the man's hand. "Daddy, look, can we go?" "That sounds like fun," her dad agreed, smiling at Zoe. They started to walk over to the hut, and Zoe practiced what she was going to say in her head. 3 tickets, that's £6, please. I hope you enjoy the show." Maybe this wasn't going to be so hard after all. But before she could say a word, there was a long hooting call from further down the path. It was so loud that the couple gasped, and the little girl's eyes went wide. "What was that?" she whispered, glancing at Zoe. "That sounds like Star, our Siamang gibbon," Zoe explained. "Siamangs are the loudest of all the apes. Star's just a baby, but she's very noisy, especially in the morning, just before breakfast." "Are you noisy, Oscar, just before breakfast?" "I think I'd better ask Mummy and Daddy about that. Don't you?" The little girl's face lit up. "Mummy, let's go and see her." The family all rushed down the path towards Star's lush forest enclosure. "Wait," Zoe called after them, as Meep chattered loudly. "Wouldn't you like to buy your tickets first?" But they were already too far away to hear her. Zoe sighed. "Never mind, Meep," she told her little friend. "We'll sell tickets to the next visitors who come along. You'll see." Zoe and Meep tried their best to sell as many tickets as they could, but it was hard work. By 12:30, the stack of yellow tickets didn't seem any smaller than when they'd started. "We've sold only 11, Zoe said, glancing worriedly at the pile of coins in the money tin. "That's not very many," grumbled Meep. Zoe gathered her little friend into her arms for a cuddle. "I think the problem is that there are too many amazing animals to see at the rescue zoo. Hardly any visitors have stopped at our hut because they're all rushing to see Star, or the orangutans, or the lions, or the dolphins. They're just having too much fun to buy our tickets." Wow, now it's chapter 4. We can just do a bit of chapter 4, making a splash. Look, there's a seaplane. Whoa. Exciting. What's going to happen? Do you think that's Great Uncle Horace? "Cheer up, you two," a very friendly voice called. Zoe's mum was walking down the path towards them, a large brown paper bag under her arm. "Come out and get some sunshine. I've brought you a picnic lunch." "Yum, my tummy's rumbling. I knew it must be lunchtime," chirped Meep as he scampered through the hatch. Meep's always hungry, isn't he, Oscar? Lucy handed the paper bag to Zoe, gave her a hug and carried on to see her next patient. Zoe and Meep dashed through the zoo to their favourite picnic spot, a sunny stretch of grass overlooking a wide glittering lake where the dolphins swam. Wow, that sounds good, doesn't it, Oscar? The little lemur was so excited about the picnic he started leaping about in circles on the grass, spilling his lunch. "You're dropping seeds everywhere, Meep," Zoe laughed, shaking her head at her funny friend. She sighed as she finished her sandwich. "I wish we could stay out here all day, Meep," she said wistfully. "Now that we're in the sunshine, it's going to be even harder to go back inside the hut." As Zoe began to gather up the leftovers from their picnic, she felt a sudden ripple of excitement run through the zoo. On the path behind her, there was a new burst of chatter among the visitors. Across the sparkling lake, the springboks had all stopped grazing and were standing alert, their slender ears pricked up. The dolphins swam up to the surface and lifted their grey heads into the air, clicking happily. Zoe could hear Star calling loudly, and in the aviary nearby, hundreds of birds had started to squawk and hoot. Ooh, what can be going on, Oscar? Even Meep was gazing up into the sky, his soft ears quivering gently. "Listen," he chirped. Over the sudden noise of the animals, Zoe could hear a low, distant buzzing sound. It gradually grew louder and louder. Suddenly she recognised the sound, and a huge grin spread across her face. Meep leapt onto her shoulder. "Zoe, Zoe!" The little lemur squeaked, bouncing up and down. "He's back! Goo's back!" Zoe hugged Meep as a small red seaplane appeared on the horizon, flying low over the zoo. As the plane soared over each different enclosure, Zoe could hear the animals stamping their hooves, fluttering their wings and swishing their tails. Every creature was welcoming home the zoo's owner. Whoa! And there was the picture of the springboks, who were all looking up, waiting for Great Uncle Horace, weren't they? And here are the monkeys and the zebras, because they've got stripes, haven't they? The zebras. Oh, look, and there's a rhinoceros there, and another bird as well. Whoa, I wonder what that could be. Excellent. So, as the plane reached the lake and began to drop down onto the water, Zoe jumped to her feet, waving wildly. With a big splash, the plane glided onto the surface and skimmed through the water towards the shore. A growing crowd of visitors and zookeepers gathered around, including a very breathless Lucy. "I ran all the way from the zoo hospital when I saw the plane," she told Zoe, panting. The plane's door was flung open, and Zoe grinned as she saw Great Uncle Horace's familiar face beaming at her from the cockpit. His bushy white hair was covered up by a large fleecy hat, and a spotted scarf was wrapped round his neck. Perched on his shoulder was a big, beautiful bird with glossy feathers of rich, deep blue. Kiki was a hyacinth macaw. So there's the picture of Kiki. Wow, sounds like most beautiful feathers. Great Uncle Horace had rescued her years ago when she was just a tiny ball of fluffy feathers, and they were as close as Zoe and Meep were. Kiki squawked a greeting at Zoe, fluffed up her feathers haughtily when she saw Meep. The little lemur was often rather cheeky to the proud old macaw, and they weren't the best of friends. Great Uncle Horace climbed out of the plane, and Zoe, Meep and Lucy rushed to meet him. Wow, well, we're going to have to just stop there, Oscar. Anyway, lovely to read you, and lots of love from Granny and Grandpa, and for you to have an absolutely exciting, excellent, fantastic birthday. Hope to see you soon. Bye.